It all kicks off with our main character wondering just how unfair the world can be. A moment later, he's completely clueless about what's going on and finds himself on a bustling street. Just then, someone calls him by his name Yugo. It was his parents, asking why he looks so on edge, while his mom hurries them along, saying their restaurant reservation is already set. His dad then asks if he's hungry because they're in for a real feast. After that, his parents walk ahead, chatting about how long it's been since they all ate out together. But at that moment, a crack appears in the sky, and Yugo, noticing it, grabs his dad's shoulder, yelling for them not to go that way. However, it doesn't seem to work, and our MC starts to panic, begging them to turn back. But his dad doesn't understand what's got him so spooked, and tries to calm his son down, saying he gets the jitters since it's his first time at a French restaurant. But Yugo screams that it's nothing like that and tries to warn them that if they keep going down that path, something terrible is going to happen. Suddenly, the image of his parents starts to distort, like a glitch in reality, and just like that, everything around him starts to glitch out, and everyone turns to him, asking if he really thinks he can get away all by himself. With that, our MC wakes up with a start, realizing it was all just a horrible nightmare. Still in his bed, Yugo recovers from the shock and puts a hand to his face, clearly shaken by what he just dreamed. He then grabs his phone, and on the screen, he sees it's almost 8 in the morning and notices a disaster notification from 10 hours ago. Our MC stares at the screen, lost in thought. In his room, there are various papers and research notes about strange creatures plastered on the wall. Faced with the situation, he decides it's time to change his focus and gets out of bed, ready to start the day. As he's putting on his jacket, Yugo remembers that today's the inspection day, so he's got to head into work. A moment later, we see him on a packed train, and there, an announcement comes on that the weather and disaster news is about to start, and the first story is about the very same Class C incident in Shimane that he saw earlier. The news report states that the phenomenon has been dealt with thanks to the efforts of the soldiers who cleared the area. The scene then cuts to Shimane, completely devastated, and finally, a woman announces that the forecasts are only estimates and that demonization can happen anytime, anywhere, and she continues explaining that this unknown calamity seals off reality as if it were a nightmare. It's a realm of darkness dominated by monstrous foes, where wanderers are forced to resist the curse of their own demise. And there, in the middle of the destruction, we see a lone, helpless child who is quickly surrounded by bizarre monsters, with only a cruel fate awaiting him. The scene shifts to a soldier screaming in pain and despair, but the same woman from before grabs him and says it's their duty as soldiers to protect people from that threat. Angrily, she squeezes his arm and blames him for the passing of 200 people because of his delayed attack. The soldier, however, yells back, questioning why he, who came from 600 kilometers away, should be the first to charge in, and asks where the local soldiers were. Defeated, he admits he knew it was too late when he saw the nursery school, but the scene inside was unbearable because he found a wall covered with drawings of soldiers made by children, now stained with red. Hearing this, the woman kicks him and tells him to hand over his insignia and resign, and as he's on the ground, she glares at him and says he has no right to fix the situation, introducing herself as Shizuka, a lion-class soldier. The scene then cuts to someone reading a news story on a tablet about a certain Rindu who is warning about the drop in the quality of soldiers, and the one reading is Hakura Kuki, an Eagle-class soldier who scoffs at the news, wondering who this Rindu chick thinks she is. A man named Kono Hizashi, the site supervisor, tries to calm Hakura down, saying she's in that position for a reason. Hakura Kuki gets ticked off and manifests a yellow energy in his hand. Seeing this, Kono Hizashi has no idea what's happening, and with a swift move, the Eagle-class soldier creates blades of light, asking what position he was referring to. He then scoffs, saying Rindu isn't all that important since she was just some woman who survived the first Shinjuku incident. With the blade near his face, Kono desperately begs Hakura to put away his unique weapon. With a grunt, the soldier dispels his weapon, leaving the supervisor relieved. Right after, Kono changes the subject and shows that the merchandise production is going great, and he points to a box full of products with Hakura's face on them, saying that thanks to his modeling, everything is being well received. Satisfied, the soldier says if it's selling well, they should increase the production lines, but Kono explains that they need more manpower for that. At that moment, someone bumps into Akura, sending the supervisor into a panic, and the one who arrived late is our MC, Fushimi Yugo. Kono immediately starts yelling at him, saying it's absurd for him to be late on the day of Mr. Hakura's visit and tells him to get to work. The Eagle-class soldier asks if that clumsy guy is really a full-time employee, and Kono replies that he's a newbie and is pretty hard to handle. The supervisor continues to complain, saying Yugo is slow, constantly distracted, doesn't talk to anyone on breaks, and always seems to be sleepy. However, a female coworker approaches him and says she'll stick by his side, and Yugo just replies with a simple, "Good morning." The coworker then warns him that if he keeps showing up late, his pay will be docked, and Yugo, with an awkward smile, says he'll be more careful. Next, Hanamira Akari, the field worker, comments that Fushimi looks awful careful today too. Because of this, she gets closer and asks if he's been sleeping well, but the guy replies with a more or less. While they're working, Akari accidentally cuts herself with a box cutter. In pain, she lets out a cry and our MC turns around, concerned. The young woman then shows him her finger, saying the cut went right through her glove. At this, Yugo puts a hand on her shoulder and says he'll stop the bleeding, leaving his coworker quite surprised. Right after, he offers her a special band-aid that doesn't let any blood through. Akari is speechless for a moment but thanks him for his kindness. She then asks him if he always carries that kind of stuff and Yugo, with his head down, replies that it's a habit. From a distance, Kono comments to Hakura that one of Yugo's defining traits is how he reacts to others' injuries, calling him a regular good Samaritan. At the end of the day, Yugo leaves by himself, and the narrator says he's the type who makes some good cash. However, Kono suddenly appears and calls out to Fushimi. The supervisor is with some other coworkers and invites our MC to go for drinks with the department crew. Yugo tries to slip away, saying he lives on the outskirts, but Kono grabs him tightly, saying he's not getting away today because he knows the last train schedule. Against his will, Yugo is dragged to a bar and immediately starts thinking of a way to escape so he doesn't miss the last train. Sitting next to a cheerful Akari, our MC complains to himself about the smell of cigarette smoke in the place. He scans the room with its bunny, girl waitresses and weird customers, realizing this place is Kana's usual hangout spot. Suddenly, the supervisor hugs him from behind and asks if the small talk is fun. Kono lights a cigarette and asks if this is his first time drinking out, since he barely leaves the house except for work. The supervisor continues his teasing, saying Yugo isn't just an introvert but practically a total recluse. Akari scolds Kano for being rude while another coworker asks if Yugo has social anxiety, and without beating around the bush, the guy even asks if he's afraid of demonization, which visibly makes our MC uncomfortable. Kono laughs, thinking he hit the nail on the head, and says it's fine as long as he avoids the designated zones. The supervisor even calls him a scaredy cat, making Yugo stand up in anger. Akari, however, defends him, saying she's scared too and that Kano is being insensitive because maybe he knows someone who got caught up in it. With that, she pulls him by the hand, calling him over to play darts, away from those clueless people. Kono still scoffs, asking if he's ever played before, while Akari gets excited, saying she's really good at the game. Suddenly, Yugo's expression changes completely as he notices something, and in the blink of an eye, he pulls Akari to the ground, shielding her from a dart that flies past and hits the wall. Still on the floor, Akari is completely confused, staring at the dart that almost hit her. Kono, however, just lets out a sarcastic little laugh, and right after, he and his buddies burst out laughing, mocking Yugo for trying way too hard to impress a girl over a safety dart. Our MC apologizes, but Akari comforts him, saying it still would have been dangerous if it hit her in the eye. Embarrassed, he regrets showing Hanamiro such a pathetic scene. Seeing the situation, Kono grabs him and offers him a drink, saying he's worried he'll overthink things while sober, but Akari scolds him. Suddenly, the chandelier light starts to flicker, and a creaking sound from the stairs spooks the young woman. And there, at the bar's entrance, a strange figure dressed as a clown appears, putting everyone on high alert. A nearby couple wonders if it's a replacement employee or if there was a clown show on the schedule. Kono, completely drunk, approaches the clown and asks if he's part of the extra staff, telling him to bring tequila for everyone. Without a word, the bizarre figure pulls out a gun and fires point blank at the supervisor. The force of the blast violently tears Kono's arm from his body. The clown then reveals its bright yellow eyes and a terrifying expression. Kono looks at where his arm should be, in total shock, unable to believe what's happening, and as his vision darkens, terror fills the supervisor's face in his final moments. Lying on the floor, Kono screams in agony, desperate for his lost arm, as the clown points the gun at him. The bizarre figure then breaks into a terrifying, sick grin, enjoying the man's suffering. From there, panic erupts in the bar, and everyone starts running for their lives as the shooter fires in all directions. In the midst of the chaos, Kono is hit again and screams in agony. Desperate, Akari grabs Yugo's arm and yells for them to get out of there. Without a second thought, our MC pulls the young woman and runs as fast as he can towards the exit. Outside, a bright light explodes from the top of a building, lighting up the night. One of the coworkers trying to escape freezes in the intense light. Yugo and Akari manage to reach a door, but when they look back, they see the same coworker on the ground, terrified. Hiding behind the door, the pair watches the horrific scene unfolding inside. The bar is now being attacked by strange creatures that look like stuffed lions with button eyes. Besides them, a giant purple monster that looks like an elephant is devouring people while shadowy creatures dart through the chaos. The city outside has also turned into a nightmare, with people being hunted by shadow beasts. The coworker who was left behind screams in pure terror as he sees the monsters closing in on him. Unable to do anything, our MC screams with all his might, begging for the massacre to stop. The entire city is plunged into chaos, and a man desperately screams for soldiers. Amid the destruction, a victim despairs, realizing they're caught in the middle of the attack, and questions why this is happening since the place wasn't even in the forecast zone. Lying on the ground, he begs for a soldier's help as a giant monster approaches. With the demonization taking over everything, people run desperately among the creatures. Akari looks at Yugo, her face trembling, and asks why this is happening to them again. One of the monsters, looking like a jester with a scythe, asks the people if they have any desire to survive. Filled with rage, a man charges at it, shouting insults, and attacks it repeatedly with a piece of wood, screaming for it to perish. The jester, however, seems to enjoy the violence and, with a sick smile and a thumbs up, encourages him to continue. But with a swift move, the creature slices off the arm of the man who was attacking it. Another survivor realizes this isn't good, as the thing doesn't feel pain, and starts to flee in desperation. Yugo's coworker who was left behind begs not to be abandoned, and is grabbed by the neck as he screams in terror. The clown shooter, now with a megaphone, approaches him as the man begs him to stop because it hurts so much. With a sinister smile, the bizarre figure says it doesn't understand what pain is. Faced with this horrific scene, our MC reaches out his hand, determined to do something, and so, he lunges forward and tightly grips the clown's wrist, telling it to knock it off. Akari and the other surviving coworker are completely shocked by Yugo's unexpected action. Meanwhile, the man who was being tortured cries out in both pain and relief. Our MC then squeezes the creature's arm even tighter and repeats angrily that his coworker said it was hurting. The bizarre figure glares at him and, in a mocking tone, says he's got guts but is making a huge mistake, and right after, it fires a yellow energy beam from the megaphone directly at the young man. The attack is so powerful that Yugo's hand is completely disintegrated in the process. However, even without one of his hands, our MC surprisingly materializes a red energy axe and charges at the clown. The blow lands squarely on the creature, and Yugo takes the opportunity to grab its face with his remaining hand. With a cold, determined look, he says the monster should know very well what this is. In a brutal move, our MC rips off the clown's head, and its lifeless body slumps to the ground. The creature's decapitated head, however, is confused, wondering what this strange sensation is that it's feeling. Then, the monster panics, saying it doesn't want and doesn't know this kind of feeling, and to everyone's astonishment, a giant, winged shadow creature begins to emerge from the clown's remains as its head continues to scream that it doesn't understand what's happening. The creature that emerged from the clown lets out a deafening screech and charges at Yugo. Our MC, however, is not intimidated and with his red weapon, goes on the attack, dodging the monster's blows. He says the creature's aim is terrible as his unique weapon, called Painform, glows brightly. With a quick movement, the weapon transforms into a long, sharp sword. Yugo then faces the shadow of a giant monster and promises to make it feel the pain of being pierced. He charges at the jester and attacks it, saying it's always the same as they laugh while taking others' lives. The young man continues his relentless assault, and his weapon glows even brighter. Thanks to his weapon's granted effect, the creature begins to feel the pain of its wounds. The jester writhes in agony, feeling for the first time the pain it has so often inflicted. Yugo then says that even though they can cause pain, they can't endure their own. With one last clean strike, our MC finishes off the creature and wipes the blood from his weapon. Akari and the other coworker look at him, shocked, and ask what that knife is. Yugo, however, just turns his back to them without saying a word. The scene then cuts to an explanation of Ground Zero, which happened 8 years ago in Tokyo, where the first level 1 demonization occurred, affecting 320,000 people, but only 8 survived. And amidst the rubble of that tragedy, we see a lone, helpless child who is revealed to be our MC. And one of those 8 survivors was just a kid, facing bizarre monsters head on. With his face covered in injuries, he gritted his teeth, determined not to give up. That was a boy of only 12 years who refused to perish. And the name of this first survivor is Fushimi Yugo, who reveals that his reward for surviving was the power he just used. Changing scenes, we see the wheel of a motorcycle spinning at high speed, and riding the bike is a mysterious person with a helmet covering their entire face. She is Rindu, who reports over the phone that she's entering Niigata and will get there faster by road than by helicopter. On the other end of the line, they inform her that the demonization is Class C, but there aren't many soldiers on site, and Rindu replies that she would have ignored any stand by order anyway. Her contact on the phone comments that she seems more fired up than usual, and the young woman just confirms with a simple highs. Right after, we see the reason for her hurry, as on her phone screen there's a list of victims to rescue, including Fushimi Yugo and Hanamura Akari. With a slight smile under her helmet, she reveals she needs to get to him because he's an old buddy. Back in the disaster zone, the survivors look at our MC, who has distanced himself from them, completely in shock. The coworker then remembers the reward from last time and questions if that unique weapon he used belongs to a soldier. Terrified, the man he saved asks him why he has a weapon like that. Suddenly, Akari screams desperately, warning Fushimi to watch his back, and behind him, a horde of bizarre monsters slowly approaches, their red eyes glowing in the darkness. Seeing that his coworker is still on the ground, paralyzed with fear, our MC goes back to help him. He lifts him up and yells at Kono to get a grip because he can't just give up on living. Yugo then points to a mixed-use building and tells them to run for it. As they run, our MC feels a pang of warning, and in the next second, one of the coworkers is pierced by a spear right in front of him. The one responsible for the attack is the same jester from before, who smiles sadistically while holding his spear. The creature then yanks the spear back forcefully, knocking down the man and another coworker who was with him. Desperate, Yugo realizes the monster can catch up to them at any moment. The adrenaline of the moment makes him remember his past, and his heart races, and a painful memory of when he was a child and was pierced by a red stake flashes in his mind. With renewed determination, his weapon, pain form, begins to transform again. It becomes a bright red spear, and Yugo uses it to pin the elephant monster that was attacking one of his coworkers. With the spear in hand, he prepares to transfer the pain of being pierced to his enemies, and with a perfect throw, he hits his coworker, who was about to be devoured by the monster. Taking advantage of the distraction, Yugo yells for his coworkers to run, as they might still make it, and so, he leads the survivors through a narrow corridor as the monsters close in, and manages to shut the door just in time to stop the creatures from getting in. However, one of the coworkers panics and says they're now trapped like rats in a cage. Our MC tells him to shut it and looks through the door's window, seeing the shadows of the monsters on the other side. Outside, one of the monsters with sharp claws prepares to break down the door, and next to it, a giant creature with 3 red eyes watches intently. Yugo and his coworkers hide in terror, expecting the worst. Suddenly, the shoe of one of the monsters trying to break down the door falls to the ground, and to everyone's surprise, the creatures simply turn around and walk away. Akari asks if they're giving up, and the other coworker doesn't understand why, since they just ran into a building. Our MC then explains that it's inefficient for them to continue the chase like that. He continues saying that the monster's goal is to eliminate as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time, and that they might even deliberately delay the demonization to cause panic and make the slaughter easier. Yugo concludes by saying that chasing and stopping them would be too much trouble and a waste of time, so they simply left them alone and went to find other prey. Akari then understands that the strategy of avoiding the large building was because with fewer prey inside, the monsters wouldn't bother coming in. Lying on the ground, Kono is impressed, wondering how Yugo managed to think so far ahead in the midst of that chaotic situation. Soon after, everyone's attention turns to the supervisor's injury, and Akari asks with concern if he's okay. Kono panics about his arm, but our MC calms him down, saying the bleeding has stopped and he's not going to perish just yet. The man looks at his own hand, confused, and the other coworker explains that's how demonization works, and he continues saying that even when injured, they don't go down easily, as the phenomenon only prolongs everyone's suffering. Yugo then looks out the window and notes how strangely bright it is outside for nighttime, saying the place was designed that way, and so, he offers a vial of strong painkillers to Kono, revealing he always carries them instead of a good luck charm, and encourages him not to give up, because if he survives, the bonus reward will heal all his wounds. The supervisor stares at the vial of pills in silence, still trying to process everything. He then questions why Yugo is trying so hard to protect him, and even give him medicine. Kono asks if there's some reason for this kindness, as everyone else looks at the young man. Our MC then responds bluntly that if they don't help each other, they're all gonna end up done. For hearing this, the other coworker asks what they should do next. With a serious and determined look, Yugo tells everyone to listen carefully because he has a plan. Yugo explains that just staying alive or barricading themselves won't get them anywhere, and that they need to pull themselves together and prepare for the next challenge. He continues, saying that in the demon world, enemies and weapons spawn equally, and if they search the building, they'll definitely find something. And he even reveals that there's a pattern to item spawns, like lockers and drawers, as closed storage spaces have a higher chance of containing something. Once they find weapons, the plan is to head out into the field and take down as many enemies as possible to gain experience points. This is the golden rule for facing the challenges of the later stages, as the enemies will only get stronger from here on out. Yugo warns that the types of monsters, their behavior patterns, and everything else will change, and to keep winning, they need to increase their firepower. And while they're searching, Kano finds a pistol, and our MC says that along the way, they also need to increase their number of allies. And so, the plan is to team up with other survivors while eliminating the monsters. With his weapon in hand, Yugo declares that they will all survive survive together. From the top floor of a building, they observe a horde of monsters outside. Akari comments that they're everywhere, but our MC corrects her, saying it's the opposite pattern, as a large group of people ran into the building across the street. He continues, saying they were lucky to get the high ground, and that now they can join the other survivors to prepare for the next challenge. Yugo then instructs Kano and Akari to fire from their position when he gives the signal, while Hidaka and Motami will attack simultaneously from the first floor windows. The young man warns that their position is riskier, and asks them to make sure the monsters don't breach the building. With the plan set and everyone in position, our MC prepares to launch the attack. Before starting the attack, Akari asks with concern if Fushimi is okay, and if he isn't pushing himself too hard. With a confident smile, he replies that he's fine because he's used to it. Yugo then positions himself on the edge of the building, ready to jump. He observes the horde of monsters below and realizes there are too many to handle with his knife, so he decides to expand his bandwidth and attack, as the enemies whose essence has become pain due to the demonization do not falter. The young man knows they have pure HP and will calmly continue fighting until it hits 0, and fighting them head-on would be frustrating due to their resilience, but it's the perfect opportunity to counterattack with his receptacle of pain. Yugo analyzes that the nature of the monsters is close to that of living beings, and that even if they don't feel fear, certain vulnerable points like the neck, heart, and head still exist on their bodies, and hitting these critical points can result in instant takedowns, so he plans to follow up with a surprise attack. With the strategy in mind, his weapon, Pain Form, begins to transform again, but he regrets having to remember that. The weapon dissolves into a pool of red liquid, and he launches it from the building. The liquid transforms into an acid rain that pours down on the monsters. The creatures are struck by the pain of the acid rain and begin to writhe. Screams of agony echo through the street as the monsters are consumed by the attack. With a pain debuff applied to the entire group, Yugo yells for his companions to attack. Following the signal, the two guys positioned at the first floor windows open fire on the horde of monsters. Akari and Kono also join the assault, firing their weapons from the upper floor. The monsters are hit by the gunfire, and chaos breaks out in the street below. Yugo then leaps from the building, and with his red weapon, he slices off the head of one of the clowns. Landing in the middle of the battle, he prepares to face the remaining creatures. With his weapon in hand, he turns to the monsters that survived the initial assault, and with a command he orders his companions not to stop firing. The two guys on the first floor continue to fire their weapons without hesitation. Akari also keeps her fire concentrated on the monsters with a determined expression, and Kano, his face filled with rage and sweat, unloads his pistol into the horde. While his companions provide cover, Yugo charges into the fray with his weapon transformed into a sword. He moves with agility, dodging attacks and eliminating the creatures with precise strikes. With a focused and determined look, our MC fights bravely against the monsters, and with a swift and powerful move, he cuts one of the creatures in half. However, one of the monsters with sharp claws manages to get through the barrage of fire and charges towards him. From the upper floor, Akari yells in anger and shoots the monster that was advancing on Yugo. The shot hits the creature dead on, and our MC turns to his companion. With a smile, he compliments her aim, saying it was a good shot. Proudly, Akari replies that she's been practicing a lot of FPS, and Kano is surprised to learn she plays everything but darts. After eliminating all the monsters, Yugo stands in the middle of the street, his weapon in hand. Suddenly, Kano and Akari notice something glowing on one of the monsters' bodies and wonder if it's an item drop, and from inside the monster, a bright golden cube emerges. Our MC turns to Hanamura and, with a smile, says she's lucky because it's a rare drop. He explains that it's very hard to find a rare drop so early, and that the item has a drop rate of only 3%. The golden cube floats in the air as the group gathers to observe it. Yugo confirms that the monsters really do drop items and that the golden one is a rare drop, encouraging Akari to open it. Carefully, the young woman approaches and opens the cube, which emits an intense light. Surprised, she wonders what's inside and sees a kitten. To everyone's astonishment, a cute white kitten with yellow eyes comes out of the cube and meows at them. Akari touches the kitten, and it disappears in a golden light, leaving her confused, but Yugo explains that the item was just stored in her inventory, and she can retrieve it anytime by imagining it. Yugo advises Akari to take good care of the item, as things whose use isn't obvious are usually key items, and says that for now, they need to find other survivors. So, they head to the building where the other group of people took refuge, and when they arrive, they are greeted by a group of elderly people and caregivers who emotionally thank them for being saved. They explain that the place is full of seniors and they thought it was the end, but our MC reassures them, saying he's glad they made it in time. Suddenly, one of the caregivers compliments their resilience, and Akari is surprised to realize there was a nursing home there. A tall, white-haired man appears at the entrance, and Yugo and Akari turn to face him. With a confident smile, the man says the situation is great. Yugo's coworkers recognize him immediately as Tagara, and are surprised to see him there. With a mocking smile, he greets Kano and apologizes apologizes for being late, saying he was fighting elsewhere. One of the guys runs up to him, relieved, saying he was so scared and that he watches all of his streams. Akari comments that the soldier has arrived and wonders if they can relax now, but our MC remains silent. Yugo, however, knows that's a lie, and that the fact Takara chose to come alone means he saw the enemies and was just watching the situation unfold. He realizes the soldier was hiding and watching the fight the whole time, but knows that pointing it out would only increase the other survivors' anxiety. And so, our MC approaches Takara and says that for now he's a lifesaver. With a serious look, he proposes they discuss the future, but Takara interrupts him with a surprise attack. Suddenly, a giant monster with multiple eyes appears in the middle of the room, and Tagura calls it a newbie. Akari panics, realizing the creature appeared out of nowhere, and our MC notes that there was no sound of footsteps. The young woman then shoots the monster, but the bullets ricochet off its thick hide. She's shocked to see her shots have no effect, and Yugo explains that it's an enemy specialized in defense, instructing her to aim for the ones above. Our MC realizes that being pushed back is bad and decides he needs to take down the big guy with a single blow. However, he feels a sharp pain and realizes that using the acid rain has left him exhausted. With difficulty, he tries to concentrate to use his ability but knows he won't be able to fire a strong shot right away. Even so, he manages to apply a pain debuff to the creature, transferring the sensation of being pierced by a spear. Kono yells for Togara to do something, but the soldier just tells him to shut up and charges in with his own energy weapon. He strikes the monster with his light sword, but the attack doesn't do much damage. Akari is surprised to see Yugo running towards the creature unarmed. On the other side of the room, one of the elderly men picks up a rifle and shoots the monster in the eye, managing to make it flinch. With a battle cry, the old man encourages the others to keep attacking. Taking advantage of the distraction, our MC leaps towards the creature's face, and with his red knife, he pierces one of the monster's eyes with all his might. The clean hit sends the giant monster crashing to the ground, creating a huge crater. Akari thanks the old man, praising his skills with the weapon, and he introduces himself as Gobei, replying that she's not bad herself. Our MC then realizes there are still 4 enemies left and wonders if they can take them out while the elephant monster is stunned. He yells for Takara to leave 2 of the monsters to him, and the soldier, though surprised, accepts the challenge, saying it'll be a piece of cake. Yugo charges at the lion monsters that surround him. Growling, with a determined look, he prepares for the fight, his weapon in hand, and the weapon of pain begins to transform once more. It becomes a long, sharp scythe, and with a leap, he goes on the attack. With his new weapon in hand, he prepares to face the creatures, and with a spinning strike, he transfers the pain of being sliced to the monsters. The attack eliminates both creatures instantly, and Yugo turns to his next target. He notices the elephant monster is already recovering and needs to act fast. Without wasting time, he leaps towards the creature, which is still on the ground, and with his weapon transformed into a mace, he prepares to transfer the pain of being struck. However, upon hitting the monster, he realizes its hide is extremely tough and wonders if he can even break it. Suddenly, Yugo yells Togara's name as he strikes the monster, announcing that reinforcements have arrived. But as he looks to the side, our MC's face twists in shock. It turns out Togara was in the air, fighting one of the lion monsters with his light sword. Right after, the white-haired soldier lands with a grin, finding the situation quite amusing. With a shout, he unleashes a super flashy electric attack on the creature. The ability hits the monster dead on, stunning it for a moment. Seeing this, the other survivors are impressed by the soldier's power and start cheering for him, calling his attack the Thunder Calamity Blade. With a smug smile, Togara turns to the crowd and tells them to leave everything to him. Our MC, however, still on top of the elephant monster, realizes something is very wrong with this scene. He understands that the soldier is just putting on a show, as his strikes are completely superficial. The electric shock he uses is weak and only serves to paralyze the creatures for a moment, as he has no real intention of defeating them. In fact, Togara is just showing off with his flashy moves, and our MC wonders how someone like him ever made it to the Black Eagle rank. The soldier complains that the monster is pretty tough, but says he can still ramp up his power, while Yugo is disgusted with the quality of current soldiers. Full of impatience, our MC appears behind Togara and tells him he's in the way. He then shoves Gobei forward with his rifle and tells the soldier to take his show somewhere else. With a sharp look, Yugo states that there are only 3 real warriors here. Gobei glares at him with determination, showing that he is one of those fighters. Our MC continues his speech, including himself as one of the combatants, and finally, he points to Akari, who is surprised to be called into the fight. The old man then turns to the lion monsters and says that everyone else has forgotten how to survive. With that said, he opens fire on the 2 creatures without a hint of hesitation. Gobei, however, notices that the monsters don't flinch and sees that the elephant felt pain, but they didn't. He then explains that these things simply don't feel pain and is confused by the word debuff the young man used. Our MC ignores the old man man's confusion and prepares to act. And so he walks past Gobei and tells him to get down, saying to switch places. With the switch made, he announces he'll handle that side of the creature. Akari and the other coworker are shocked by the old man's recklessness. The old man then turns to Yugo and, with his rifle in hand, asks if he knows how to tame an elephant. A moment later, he answers his own question, saying it's like this, and with all his might, Gobei smashes the butt of his rifle right into the giant monster's eye. On top of the creature, Gobei tells it to behave as he strikes it relentlessly. Our MC is surprised, as the old man seems to know the monster's weak spots better than he does. Gobei then warns him not to get distracted, as the lion monsters are coming his way. With a sideways glance, the old man wonders if the young man is really an ally. Yugo, however, responds with action, attacking the creatures with a spinning strike of his weapon. Satisfied, Gobei points in a direction and gives the young man a signal. He then yells for Yugo to run as the elephant monster has thrown him far away. The giant creature then opens its mouth and lets out a deafening roar. Soon after, the monster charges full speed towards Gobei, who runs for his life. With all its strength, the creature stumps on the ground, saying that a weight greater than a 5-ton elephant is the best hammer of all, and crushes whatever was beneath it. The monster then looks down and realizes it just crushed one of its own allies. Standing on the creature's head, Gobei says the rest is up to our MC. Without wasting time, Yugo leaps and delivers a powerful blow with his mace right on the monster's head. The other survivors are completely shocked by the scene of pure violence. Gobei stands atop the defeated creature and comments on how he and that young man are truly incredible. Meanwhile, Takara just stands there with a dumb look on his face, realizing he didn't manage to defeat a single monster. Suddenly, a red screen appears in front of our MC, catching his attention. The notification informs him that the initial sequence is complete and that survivor rewards have been distributed, showing the status increases for Fushimi and Hadamira. Gobei also receives his attribute points and stares at his own hand, completely baffled. Akari then asks him what that is, and Yugo explains it's a status boost that happens based on each person's performance, while the old man celebrates that his back pain is gone. Right after, a new message warns that a large structure will be added to the field, leaving the pair very concerned. The system then tells all survivors to evacuate the emergency area immediately as the streets begin to glow intensely. With that, the entire city is bathed in a sinister red glow. From there, a bright light appears on the horizon, and from the ground, a massive circus tent begins to emerge with an eerie glow. Yugo and Akari watch the bizarre structure that appeared out of nowhere. Before them, a final message announces the start of the second sequence, leaving them both on edge. The scene cuts to inside the tent, where Yugo, Tagara, and Gobei face a new figure, and our MC senses that this one's presence is different from the others. On a stage, a new monster with the air of a ringmaster appears, and Fushimi confirms that this one is the leader. With a sinister smile, the ringmaster says that from now on, he hopes to get to know them better. Akari gets ready to shoot, but our MC stops her, telling her to wait as they don't know how the enemy will react. Yugo then analyzes the situation and realizes the leader is in a very poor position for a direct attack, and wonders if he can leap up there using his spear. He, however, dismisses the idea as too reckless and wonders what the monster is doing with that golden pipe. To everyone's surprise, the creature brings the object to its mouth, as if it were a musical instrument, and upon blowing it, a purple energy emerges in the air, putting the group on high alert. Soon after, several purple magic circles appear on the ground, and our MC is completely confused. From within one of the portals, a bizarre creature that looks like a giant rat begins to emerge. With several monsters summoned, the ringmaster announces that the show is about to begin. Yugo then realizes the leader has called his minions and wonders if he's that kind of boss. And so, he turns to Takara and asks if he has any ability to blind the enemies. The white-haired soldier replies that he has something for a preemptive strike, but our MC tells him to wait for his signal. With the order given, the horde of giant rats charges at the pair with their sharp claws. Yugo yells for them to spread out and activates his weapon, which begins to transform. In an instant, his weapon becomes a spear, and he uses it to pierce one of the creatures, transferring the pain of being stabbed. With the spear in hand, he pierces the creature's eye, but the attack doesn't go all the way through. Our MC is surprised to find that his blade simply can't penetrate the monster's hide. Taking advantage of the opening, the creature throws him back with a body blow. As he recovers from the impact, our MC barely has time to react, as the monster attacks him with its tail, and Yugo defends with his weapon on pure reflex. He then realizes the creature also uses its tail as a weapon to attack. In the background, Toguro yells for Yugo to watch out, as he's busy too, and can't help him. Our MC replies that he's fine and realizes the creature's fur is so tough that the blade just slides off. And so, his weapon weapon transforms into a sledgehammer, and he prepares to transfer the pain of being struck by it. The blow lands squarely on the creature's head, and Yugo notes that even with the pain debuff, the impact damage managed to get through its defense. With the creature stunned, our MC yells for his companions to concentrate their fire on it. Following the order, the pair unloads everything they have in the monster's direction. Akari celebrates the hit, but Gobei explains that the force of the impact only stopped the creature's movement for a moment. Our MC then reveals that it was enough for a decoy as another creature charges towards him, with his weapon transformed into an axe. He leaps and lands a devastating blow on the monster that was attacking him. With a serious expression, our MC prepares to face more creatures advancing on him. Faced with this, he uses his sledgehammer to defend against one of the monster's attacks, creating a huge impact. He, however, is surprised that the blow didn't finish the creature and realizes its durability is quite high. Then, another monster attacks him, and Yugo defends with the weapon's handle, realizing these things are really tough. With no time to think, the young man continues to fight the horde of rats surrounding him. Meanwhile, Gobei and Akari are also fighting and realize they need at least 3 hits to take down a single creature. From above, the ringmaster watches the fight with a smile and congratulates the group on exterminating one of his lackeys. With a sinister look, he decides the battle is too easy for the survivors and prepares to call for reinforcements. Soon after, more purple portals open up around the arena, and the group goes on high alert. One of Yugo's coworkers screams in desperation that the number of enemies has doubled and asks Gobei to use his high-powered rifle. Faced with the situation, the group starts firing non-stop but realizes they won't be able to hold off so many monsters, and that they need a better plan. Gobei then agrees that he can't hold back anymore, while Akari glares at the boss with intense anger. On stage, the leader continues to play his instrument calmly, as if nothing is happening. Our MC glares at him annoyed and wonders if this guy is some kind of Pied Piper. Suddenly, while watching the monsters run, Yugo seems to have an idea and realizes something important. With his idea in mind, our MC yells for Hanamira to use the cat she got earlier. He then quickly explains that in the story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, he uses his flute to lure the rats, and the current situation must be based on that. With that, it's clear that these creatures are the rats from the story and the cat is the key to victory. Akari understands the plan, and even though she's surprised that a key item is a cat, she agrees to use it. And so, the young woman extends her hand and with a golden glow, she summons the kitten that was stored away. In front of the giant monsters, a small cat appears in the middle of the arena, emitting a bright light. To everyone's surprise, the small animal begins to grow and transform into a giant creature. The giant cat then opens its mouth and, without a second thought, chomps down on one of the rat monsters. With the creature in its mouth, the cat stares down the other monsters, which now seem quite small. Terrified, the remaining rats begin to retreat and climb up one of the arena's structures. Akari and Gobei are impressed, and the old man comments that the cat is strong and even bigger than the lion he faced earlier. Our MC realizes they've turned the tables, and that now is the perfect time to attack. He then yells for Togura to get ready because it's time to act. With the order, one of the coworkers shouts for everyone to look away as Togura prepares to use his unique weapon, Raikajin. A moment later, the soldier unleashes an ability called Flash Frenzy, which creates an explosion of light and electricity throughout the arena. Taking advantage of the distraction from Togura's attack, the boss is blinded for a moment, and our MC's weapon embeds itself in the ground. Then, the young man appears in the air right behind the creature and warns that the free ride of just watching from above is over. With a quick move, he throws his red chain, which wraps tightly around the monster's neck. His weapon then transfers the pain of being chained as he yanks the boss down to the ground with all his might. With a grunt of effort, our MC uses all his strength to drag the monster. The leader of this bizarre circus feels pain for the first time and grimaces in agony. With that, the creature is torn from the stage and crashes violently to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. Seizing the opportunity, the other survivors yell to concentrate fire and start shooting non-stop. The monster is then hit by a shower of bullets while it's still recovering from the fall. Our MC notices the shots landed but tells everyone to hold their fire as he's going to check the situation. From the middle of the smoke, the creature's silhouette remains standing, leaving everyone on edge. When the dust settles, the boss appears, wounded but still alive, and praises the attack, calling it splendid. He continues, saying the quick response, appropriate judgment, and unhesitating action were all first class. As its body dissolves into a bizarre, dark energy, the monster announces that now, the main show will begin. Our MC then goes on alert as he sees the creature completely transform into a mass of shadows and tentacles. From a distance, Akari and Gobei watch the monster's transformation, completely shocked. shocked. Takara and the other coworker are also stunned as they watch the shadowy creature form. The monster then stumps the ground forcefully and grows at an alarming rate. With its transformation complete, the creature asks our MC if he likes horror movies. Then, it says the young man is about to experience one, not as a spectator, but as a member of the cast, as a red screen announces that this is the boss's second form. The giant creature then towers over the group and, with a sinister smile, says that now the main show will begin. With the command to dance, the monster stomps down hard, making the group scatter to avoid being crushed. Akari screams in desperation, wondering how this is even allowed, and our MC tells Gobei to aim for the flute when they're getting out of there. Yugo then yells for everyone to fall back, and the group starts running away from the boss. Gobei, however, yells for them not to stick together and to spread out. With the order, our MC leads his group and yells for them to split into 3 teams. From a distance, the boss notices the strategy and, with a mocking smile, praises the group for anticipating the crisis. Gobei takes advantage of the monster's distraction and, with a clean shot, hits the golden flute. The boss is then completely shocked to see its instrument destroyed right in front of it. With the flute destroyed, the monster faces the group and, with a mocking smile, praises their sharp thinking. Seeing this, it realizes the group will escape this time but says that only adds to the fun of the hunt. Safely in a hallway, Yugo's coworker despairs, saying it's impossible to win this. Our MC, however, corrects him, saying they can indeed defeat it, and he's sure of it after that last shot. He then explains that when he attacked, the boss protected the flute first, and the same thing happened with Gobei's shot. The monster dodged the flute and took the shot to the face, a very strange defensive move if it weren't a weak spot. The coworker questions if it wasn't just protecting the tool that summons its lackeys, but Yugo points out that if the boss had that much HP, it wouldn't even need to summon anything. Our MC continues, saying that the fact the monster didn't seem injured even after being hit by the pain weapon reinforces the theory that its body is just a puppet. He remembers that the boss never said it was the director, but that the director was here. With a confident smile, Yugo realizes that demonization always leaves a path to victory, and that they leave a small chance for the survivors just to watch their despair and say they could have won if they had done things differently. With a sigh, he comments on the monster's awful personalities and decides to head to the meeting point with the others. Meanwhile, in another part of the circus, Tagara and his group are facing a horde of clowns. The soldier then yells for the others to run while he distracts the monsters with his electric attacks. Suddenly, he realizes he's risking his neck to save others and wonders why the heck he's doing it. He then realizes that even with Fushimi, they only have 2 soldiers, and they're in a losing battle. In his desperate escape, Tagara thinks he's out of the director's sight and that he can just run away. With a determined look, he decides he needs to find a position to escape this punishment game. With no shame or reputation to worry about, he runs for his life, because if he perishes, it's all over. He remembers his life of fame and how it's all just a charade to please idiot clients, and that in the end, it's all just appearances, and no one cares about what's inside. Angrily, he wonders why our MC keeps fighting instead of running like him. He doesn't understand why the young man doesn't act the same way and questions what the difference is between them. With a cry of frustration, Tagora continues his escape without looking back. In a safe corridor, our MC reunites with the rest of the group and asks if everyone is okay. Gobei praises him for figuring out the boss's weakness, and Yugo asks if he agrees that the flute is the target. Tagara, however, says that even if they hit the flute, it won't decide the fight, as the boss already reacted to the old man's shot. Our MC then reveals that if they can apply pain to the flute, it's a different story, and explains that a flute is a delicate instrument, and if one part is missing, it won't work anymore, making it a vital point. Gobei then understands that they don't need to take the monster's giant body seriously, and our MC confirms, saying it's just a wall, and they need to find a way around it. Our MC then points out that the problem is the monster's height, as they can't aim properly from below. Because of this, he declares that the plan is to match the boss's height. Tagara is incredulous at the idea, but Yugo explains that with 2 unique pieces of equipment, they can definitely get the monster's attention. The first step of the plan is to keep the sniper team hidden, and then create a window of opportunity for them to aim at the flute. Togara then asks why Yugo brought Kono if he can't shoot with only one arm. Our MC replies that he sent him to look for items in the meantime, and in a storage room, Kono finds something that leaves him completely surprised. Upon opening the box, he reveals the item he found inside. Meanwhile, outside, the boss advances towards the group. It notices their presence on top of a building and goes on the attack. Yugo yells that the monster has spotted them and prepares for what's coming. With a leap, the giant creature charges charges at the building with a sinister smile. Togura despairs, saying the building is going to collapse and they're doomed. Our MC, however, calms him down and, with a confident smile, tells him to have faith in the country's earthquake-resistant architectural technology. With the impact of the attack, the building's structure shakes but doesn't collapse, leaving Kono relieved. Our MC realizes the building won't fall and that the monster isn't as heavy as it looks. He understands that if the creature had weight corresponding to its size, the ground would sink, and it wouldn't even be able to walk properly. With that, he prepares for a large-scale attack to stop the monster. His weapon then begins to transform and release an intense red energy. He then activates the pain exposed to explosion and transfers it to the boss's flute. The monster feels the pain and grunts as it looks at its damaged instrument. Our MC realizes the pain buff is active and yells for his companions to fire. Without wasting time, Gobei fires with his high-precision rifle. Akari and the other coworker also join the assault and unload everything they have at the boss. With the shower of bullets, the monster's flute is hit, and it drops it for a moment. The creature then turns to the sniper team and says they are gonna perish. One of Yugo's coworkers is terrified to see the monster staring directly at them. With a swift move, the boss charges towards the building where they are. Our MC realizes the sniper's position has been discovered and yells for Gobei to run. Suddenly, the boss attacks with a blade whip, and Yugo's coworker wonders if it's a training weapon. The attack destroys everything around it, and the building starts to collapse. As he runs for his life, one of the survivors comments that this really feels like a horror movie. Suddenly, Gobei notices a light rapidly approaching through the window, and in the blink of an eye, a giant sharp paper airplane smashes through the wall and charges at them. With a sinister smile, the boss says its mind can't stay calm and attacks with its whip. With the combined attacks, the building begins to crumble, and Gobei can barely protect himself from the debris. Our MC notices the monster's whip has blades and can move freely. Without wasting time, he yells for his group to move and calls for Togura to follow him. The white-haired soldier, however, points his light sword at Yugo and tells him to wait a moment as he has something to say. With a cold look, Togura points his weapon at our MC. Yugo is shocked by the soldier's attitude and yells that if they fail the mission, it'll be the same outcome. Togura, however, corrects him and says there's a chance to survive the punishment game. He continues, saying that if they just run until the end, the two of them can survive. With a sinister smile, Togura says they don't need to defeat the boss or protect the common people who are going to perish anyway. He insists that this is the correct answer and that it's not about ideals, but survival. Desperate, the soldier grabs our MC's collar and says that surviving is about doing things like this. He begs Yugo to agree and nod his head. With tears in his eyes, Togura asks the young man to say they are the same. Our MC, however, remains silent with a vacant expression. With a slight smile, he says the soldier is right and that he can't deny it or stop him. But with a quick move, he steps away and says he can't go with him. Togura is completely shocked by the unexpected response. Our MC then asks him if he understands that when people he knows pass away, a part of his heart goes with them. With a sad look, he says that a large part of his is already gone and that there's almost nothing left. He then explains that the number 8 out of 320,000 survivors from Ground Zero is just a margin of error and that the survival rate is practically zero. With a hand on his chest, our MC says he can't discard the last fragment he has left, because if he does, those 320,000 people will become zero. And with a heavy heart, he feels as if they truly become nothing. Togura is shocked and speechless by our MC's response. With a sad smile, Yugo asks if he wanted a lecture and turns his back to the soldier, apologizing if it sounded like one. He then climbs onto the edge of the building and says he's not a proper human being who has lived well enough to scold others. With one last look at Togura, he prepares to jump, and without hesitation, he throws himself off the building towards the giant monster. With his hand glowing red, he prepares for a powerful attack and transfers the pain of being torn by claws to the creature. As he falls, he yells for Gobei to hang on because he's coming. Akari then provides cover and starts firing everything she has at the boss. The shot hits the monster's flute dead on once again. Angrily, the creature grunts and glares at the young woman with its bright red eyes. Akari then taunts it, saying it doesn't keep its weakness in its clothes. The boss calls her brave but says it's a futile and foolish fight, and with a swift move, it launches one of its shadowy tentacles towards her. With the creature focused on them, Akari yells for the other coworker not to be afraid and says that while the boss attacks them, the others will be free to act. With a determined expression, she faces the monster and says Gobei will get the clean shot. The old man is impressed by the young woman's courage and says if he had a son, he'd want her as a daughter-in-law. And with one last clean shot, he hits the boss dead on once more. The creature then grunts in pain and glares at the group with immense anger. In freefall, our MC prepares an attack with his battle axe. He transfers the pain of being split in half and attacks the monster with a spinning blow. The creature is surprised by the unexpected attack and feels the pain in its body. Our MC, however, realizes the blow is too hard to land and that it's impossible to cut the monster. The boss praises him for the courage to come straight at it without without hesitation, but says that from that position, he will perish as expected, and launches an attack of shadow spikes. Our MC, however, activates the pain of being exposed to a shockwave and launches himself away. With the blast's momentum, he manages to dodge the attack and get away from the boss. The monster is surprised to see that the young man blew himself up to escape the attack, but our MC isn't done yet and prepares for another explosive shot. With an expression of pain, our MC forces himself to endure the explosion. He realizes that right now he can't use a big move and needs to hang on tight. Suddenly, the boss is hit by a golden shot that paralyzes it for a moment. A yellow electrical energy begins to course through the monster's body, leaving it stunned. Kono then appears and says the shot worked and that he thought it looked promising. Our MC is surprised to see him there, and the young man explains that he barely made it in time using the elevator. Yugo then calls for him to retreat and take shelter inside the building as the boss's shadow looms behind them. As they run, he asks what that was, and Kono explains it was an item he picked up in the building. He continues, saying it looked significant, so he shot it and it worked, and our MC realizes that this is the reward that should have been given to the piper. The screen then shows the item's description, which is a gold coin bullet that stuns the ringmaster for 5 seconds. The boss, however, recovers from the stun and says that in the end, it's just a small delay. With a flash of light, the creature prepares to attack, but is surprised by a yellow bolt of lightning. To everyone's astonishment, Togger appears, covered in electricity, and charges at the monster. Yugo and Kono are shocked to see the soldier there, yelling and unleashing his full power. Angrily, Togger attacks the boss, shouting that he wasn't running away, and repeatedly insulting it. The scene flashes back to when Toguro was a child, and the teacher asks what he wants to be in the future. With an innocent smile, he shows a drawing and says he's decided to be a hero who protects everyone. Back in the present, Toguro gets annoyed for remembering such a silly thing and continues his attack. He lands a powerful blow on the boss, but the creature manages to defend itself. The monster then says that normal stuns don't have a lasting effect on it and attacks him back. Our MC realizes he needs to help, but Kono holds him back desperately. From a distance, Gobei sees that Togger is holding on but realizes the boss's guard is too strong. The monster then prepares for a powerful attack and hits the soldier dead on. Akari, however, runs towards him and, with a clean strike, hits the boss. With a smile, she says she's changed her mind about Togura, and that he might be a real hero. The boss glares at her angrily and calls her brave once more. With a swift move, it prepares to attack the young woman with a staff. Akari, however, is not intimidated and continues running towards it. Our MC watches the scene desperately, but he can do nothing, and with a powerful blow the boss attacks the young woman without mercy. Akari is hit dead on by the attack, and the monster says her courage has become her ruin. Our MC screams his coworker's name, completely desperate. The young woman is thrown into the air by the impact, her body severely injured. With a vacant look she stares at the sky as she slowly falls. Yugo screams Hadamira's name again, unable to believe what he's seeing. The boss then glares at her and, with a mocking smile, asks if a hero's end isn't a sad thing. With one last effort, it throws her away with a strike of its whip. Akari's body flies through the air towards our MC. He catches her in his arms and looks at her with pure anguish. Yugo calls his coworker's name, but she doesn't respond. In our MC's arms, the young woman has a fatal wound with no means of treatment. Desperate, Yugo refuses to accept reality and goes into denial. Akari, however, opens her eyes and looks at him with one last breath. Yugo calls her again but is left speechless by what he sees. With her last strength, Akari says that only he can do it and closes her eyes forever. With one last look, our MC understands that she doesn't have to suffer anymore, and with a sad smile, the young woman says goodbye with a peaceful expression. Yugo is in shock from what just happened. In his arms, Akari is at peace with a final smile on her face. The wound on her chest shows the severity of the attack that took her life. Our MC hugs her and says it's okay as he tries to process the loss. The boss then glares at him and, with a mocking smile, asks if the plan didn't work out a little too well. From a distance, Gobei watches the scene with a look of pure rage and sadness. Kano is also shocked and speechless at his coworker's passing. Lying on the ground, Togger is also exhausted and defeated. Our MC hugs Akari's body and laments that even with everyone giving their all, the result was the loss of the person he most wanted to protect, right in front of him. The boss then approaches and asks if it must be painful and agonizing. Gobei, however, gets angry and tries to shoot the monster, but realizes it's not even looking his way. Kono also becomes enraged but knows he can't do anything against that being. The boss then offers an end to our MC's suffering and says he was a good fool. With his head down, Yugo just listens to the monster's words without saying anything. In his mind, he remembers the pain he felt and wonders if his memory is gone because of it. He then realizes it's not that, but the fear of remembering that terrible pain. Suddenly, a blue light begins to emanate from his body as he hugs Akari. The boss is surprised by the sudden change in atmosphere and doesn't understand what's happening. Our MC then reveals that the reason he can't remember is because the heart that felt that pain perished at that moment, along with the person he loved. With the revelation, a powerful blue aura completely envelopes our MC. With a cold, determined look, he faces the boss and says he will make it understand hand. The monster grunts, annoyed by Yugo's sudden change. It wonders why its body is trembling and why it's so afraid to take a step forward. As the blue aura intensifies, the boss feels a fear it has never felt before. It realizes that light transmits something it doesn't know, and feels an unknown and powerful energy flowing into it. Our MC reveals that this is his greatest pain, a power that can only be used at a very specific moment, and that will erase everything, leaving nothing behind. From there, his unique weapon, Pain Form, completely transforms with the blue energy. The ringmaster is terrified by Yugo's sudden change. Enveloped in this new aura, our MC wields his newly formed weapon. With a look full of hatred, he prepares to deliver a blow and transfer to the creature the pain of losing someone important. With that, the giant monster screams in pure agony as it feels this sensation for the first time. The creature writhes and questions what this is, as it's a terrifying agony it can't bear. Our MC then says of course the monster can't take it, because as someone who has never known pain, it wouldn't be able to endure this kind of suffering. From a distance, Kano watches the scene, completely shocked by Fushumi's power. Gobei is also speechless at the turn of events in the battle. Even Tagara, who is on the ground, is impressed by what's happening. Our MC stands amidst the destruction with the red sky in the background, and with a determined look, he moves forward to finally end this fight. Seeing the scene, Kono runs desperately towards our MC, shouting his name. Lying on the ground, completely exhausted, Fushimi wonders if he really managed to defeat the creature, or if it was all for nothing. Soon after, he looks at Hanamira's lifeless body beside him, and apologizes to his fallen coworker. Kono yells for the young man to cheer up, as he managed to take down the enemy, while Gobei asks if the boy and girl are okay. The supervisor confirms that Yugo is alive, but his coworker didn't make it, and the old man says there's nothing they can do for him at that moment. Suddenly, the pair is completely shocked by something that appears in front of them. From the middle of the dust, the ringmaster's silhouette reappears, and with a laugh, it comments that was a close call. The creature then admits that if it hadn't thrown its flute on impulse, it would have perished right then. With the broken flute in hand, the boss realizes it made a huge mistake by getting rid of its main body. Kono then understands that the monster let its main body escape at the last minute and regrets not noticing because of the attack's brightness. Our MC yells for everyone to run but realizes he can't move as he no longer feels his limbs. With an even more bizarre appearance, the ringmaster advances on them, letting out a terrifying roar. Without wasting time, the creature leaps towards Fushimi, ready to deliver the final blow. However, at the last moment, something hits the monster dead on and stops its attack. To everyone's surprise, a motorcycle flies through the air and delivers a powerful kick to the boss, sending it flying. The impact of the blow creates an explosion of blue energy that lights up the entire area. With that, the ringmaster falls to the ground, completely defeated after the powerful attack. Suddenly, the mysterious person approaches the group and says that was a close one, leaving everyone quite surprised. The newcomer reveals herself to be Rindu, and upon seeing Hanamira's body, she comments that it's been about a minute since the cardiac arrest. Then, a bright green light appears over the fallen young woman. That energy begins to heal the wound on Akari's chest, and Rindu says it was worth wrecking a new car to get here in time. Our MC is completely shocked to realize she came to help him. Rindu then scolds him for calling her that, saying it's wrong. With a smile, she tells him to call her Big Sis, and introduces herself as Rindu Shizuka, a Golden Lion-class soldier. The ringmaster begins to get up, and the soldier asks if that's the only enemy left, because if so, it won't be a problem. With his broken flute in hand, the creature recovers with a sinister smile on its face. Soon after, he blows the instrument once more, and summons a horde of stuffed monsters with button eyes. Rindu finds the creatures trivial, but says she'd rather not have any more people get hurt. Because of this, she turns to Yugo and says she needs his help, telling him to wake up as she touches him with her recovery staff. The soldier then uses her life injection ability, and our MC is enveloped in a healing energy, shocked by the sensation. With his power restored, our MC stands up, and Kano and Gobei are surprised by the instant recovery. Yugo says it's always the same, and Rindu asks if he feels healed in a way that almost seems illegal. The soldier then asks if there are more survivors, and our MC confirms there are over a dozen people who fought with them. He explains that some are injured and many others are waiting in a more distant building. Rindu then turns to Kano and Gobei and tells them not to move from that spot. The order is for them to protect the girl and do nothing else. Gobei is impressed by the soldier's overwhelming presence and asks if she doesn't need help since there are so many enemies. The young woman then corrects him, saying there are actually few enemies, and with a battle cry, she says there are few for them to face, because now it's the two siblings against the horde. Rindu charges at the stuffed monsters with her staff in hand. With a powerful blow, she destroys one of the creatures and prepares for the next attack. The soldier comments on the enemy's poor taste for creating stitched together monsters, and with another attack, she tells the creatures to come back when they're stitched together more cutely. Our MC then yells for Rindu to be careful, as a horde of shadow monsters is coming her way. The soldier, however, says they've arrived just in time, as she's thrown enough punches to charge up her power. With that, the soldier activates her staff's ability, called Life Flow, and unleashes a wave of green energy across the arena. Seeing this, Kono screams in desperation, asking what the heck she's doing, while Gobei is completely confused. Our MC then explains that this is Rindu's staff ability, and the more she hits, the more power she accumulates, and that she heals herself with this power and then hits again in a ruthless, infinite cycle, making her a one-of-a-kind frontline healer among the soldiers. With a cute, innocent expression, Rindu herself seems to wonder if she isn't the healer type. Faced with this, Kono gets all flustered and apologizes for his comment, while Gobei remains suspicious. With his energy renewed, our MC charges into battle with his red blade. Rindu comments that even though the young man's stats have dropped, his combat intuition remains sharp. With a smile, she praises him for holding on and says he's grown a lot, making his big sister happy. Yugo, however, gets annoyed by the comment and yells that he's told her many times that he is not her little brother, leaving Kono and Gobei with dumbfounded looks in the background. The soldier bursts out laughing, saying that's what all little brothers say, but the young man retorts that in that case, none of them are her brother. The ringmaster gets angry, realizing he can't stop them and that he'll need more reinforcements. Rindu notices that the creatures are starting to struggle in the fight. From there, she hands her staff to our MC and tells him to end this once and for all. Yugo asks her to use just the right amount of power. With the staff in hand, he activates the unique weapons ability, and with a life boost, a wave of green energy envelops him, and he charges full speed towards the boss. The ringmaster is surprised by the young man's sudden increase in speed. Yugo, however, complains that he asked for a moderate amount of power as his weapon, Pain Form, begins to transform. The boss realizes a slash is coming its way, and desperately prepares to protect the flute at all costs. Our MC, however, says he figured the creature would do that. With a quick move, he transforms his red blade, and with the weapon now in the form of a spear, he pierces the monster's chest, transferring the pain of being pierced by a spear. The blow goes right through the ringmaster's body with full force. The creature is shocked to realize what happened, and our MC reveals that he used a feint to trick it. With one last look, he tells the piper that it's all over and that he won't let anyone else be taken away. With the final blow, the boss's body begins to disintegrate into pieces and finally vanishes. With its last words, the ringmaster says that it hurts. With that, our MC observes the boss's flute on the ground as his red energy dissipates. From a distance, Kono and Gobei watch the scene, completely in shock at the victory. Meanwhile, Rindu watches the situation with a serious and calm expression. Soon after, the focus shifts to Akari, who remains unconscious on the ground. Our MC then turns to where the monster was and says that now it understands pain. Suddenly, a red screen appears in front of him, informing him that the sequence is over and the designated enemy has been defeated. Right after, the task complete notification appears and announces their victory, and that bonus rewards will be distributed to the survivors. With that, our MC receives his status points with +8 strength, 8 durability, 10 agility, 12 spirit, and 2 luck. In addition, a new message announces that his unique weapon has leveled up. Kono is surprised to see his arm healing with a blue light, while Gobei receives his own attribute points. To the old man's surprise, a new unique weapon manifests in his hands, a hunter's lance rifle. Rindu then praises him, saying that for him to have reached that level, he must have had an exceptional performance. Gobei gets flustered by the compliment and says he's having trouble reacting to all of this. Our MC observes another reward notification with a surprised expression. The notification our MC saw was actually for Akari, as a golden pistol called the Hero's Pistol appears floating above her. Seeing this, Kono and Gobei are completely shocked by the weapon that appeared out of nowhere. Our MC runs towards her, wondering in surprise if even Hanamura received a reward. With a satisfied smile, Rindu comments that the young man has been blessed with good companions. Soon after, a crack appears in the red sky, indicating the end is near. From there, the entire sky begins to shatter, and Rindu says that with this, it's all over. Kono and Gobei watch the red crystal shards slowly fall from the sky, and so, a notification informs them that the demon world transformation is complete, and the sky returns to a normal night with the moon shining. Our MC then hugs Akari, who is now safe, as a message informs them that the number of deceased was 232, and the number of survivors was only 48 people. Amidst the rubble, Toguro sits alone and exhausted after the long battle. A notification confirms that Toguro Koki, one of the soldiers who fought with them, also managed to survive. The scene then cuts to a dark place where a mysterious figure slams the ground in anger, screaming in pure frustration, and this figure is revealed to be Hakura Kuki, who complains that it wasn't fair and that it was cheating. With a look of pure hatred, he continues his tantrum and yells that if Rindu hadn't shown up, he definitely would have won. Suddenly, a figure in a cat mask appears, yelling at Akura Kuki, calling him a sore loser and an idiot. Meanwhile, another skeletal being observes a cauldron with curiosity. The girl in the cat mask continues her tantrum and tells the skeleton to go cook on low heat. A knight in armor then asks if he's trying to make some kind of fancy sauce and says that Ricardo is right, revealing the skeleton's name. Soon after, a woman in red armor intervenes and says that technically, that blow meant Hakura's defeat. Observing our MC in a crystal sphere, she explains that the battle's restriction was to hold the flute, so it could be the target. Because of this, throwing the flute so it could escape was unfair, and she considers it a gray area bordering on a foul. Hakura complains that Tutu is being mean too, while another figure tells Dorothy that it was a good game. This new figure then praises the spectacle, saying the stage was excellent and the ringmaster's transformation was spectacular. He continues, saying that instead of mourning the loss, Hakura, who is now inside the cauldron, should praise the performers who understood his intention. In addition, the masked man says with a smile that Yugo's return is great news and asks if everyone agrees. The other masked figures seem to agree in silence, showing they are a group. The scene then reveals that they are all sitting around a table, observing our MC, and the main figure comments that Sage is completely captivated. A hooded being with a single glowing red eye watches Yugo from a distance, for the first time in a long time. Ricardo, the skeleton, gets excited by the boss's reaction and exclaims that it's been a while since he's shown emotion and asks if he's the next to fight. The woman in red armor slams the table and yells that she doesn't accept that heavy responsibility, and so Dorothy, the girl in the cat mask, offers to go again with great excitement. Ricardo, however, says that won't work and complains that he's not satisfied because if he had known Yugo was there, things would have been different. With a smile, the masked man suggests that Ricardo have his turn, as it will be easier to prepare things that way. Tutu questions his decision, but the skeleton agrees to allow it on one condition. The condition is that Princess Dorothy can be the organizer of the next demonization, and in return he demands to be sent as the main piece of the battle, revealing an even more sinister form. The leader then looks at a crystal sphere and says the black point meter is full enough and that they're going all out. The scene then cuts to a city during the day, with a hospital in focus and the sun shining brightly in the sky, and from inside one of the hospital rooms, the daylight illuminates the entire space. Suddenly Akari's eyes begin to slowly open. With that, the young woman wakes up and finds herself lying in a hospital bed, completely confused. She then realizes someone is holding her hand and tries to call out Fushimi's name. Beside her, our MC is asleep in a chair, and the young woman calls his name softly. At her voice, Yugo finally wakes up with a tired expression on his face. Our MC wakes up startled to see his coworker awake and shouts her name, while the young woman confirms she's awake. Right after, the young man asks with concern how she is and if she feels any pain, but Rindu, who is off screen, reminds him that she treated her herself. Seeing the situation, Rindu appears in the room with a fruit basket and announces that the young woman will be discharged tomorrow and that they'll celebrate the news. With a smile, the soldier congratulates her coworker on surviving and calls her a heroine. Akari then shifts her focus to Yugo and tells him to sleep properly on a futon, but the young man tries to protest, saying he still has exams to do. Rindu, however, approaches him and, with a teasing smile, asks if he wants a taste of a big sister's love. The soldier then calms them both down, saying not to panic, as it's already decided to have a celebratory feast after the battle. The next day, the whole group is gathered at a restaurant, and Rindu encourages everyone to eat and drink as much as they want. Her coworker then encourages him not to hold back and to eat everything, as she's footing the bill. Kono thanks her happily for the meal, while the old man grumbles that grilled meat is too heavy for someone his age. Akari comments that the soldier is that kind of person, and our MC confirms, saying she's been like that since she was born. As Kono enjoys his food, Akari notices the soldier's phone has been ringing for a while. The young woman, however, doesn't pay it much mind and says not to worry, as it's just interview requests. Our MC then approaches his coworker and warns her to be careful, as this is a recruitment tactic. The soldier continues to serve everyone, and our MC explains that she buys meat for people she likes, leaving the old man completely amazed. Yugo continues, explaining that after a while, she gets the person informally hired as a soldier, and Akari is surprised, wondering if the soldier likes her. Sitting at another table, Toguro watches the scene with a look of disdain. Suddenly, Rindu approaches him and thanks him for taking care of her little brother, leaving the soldier quite surprised. The soldier then says she heard he really risked his life, and that she has re-evaluated him because of it. With a smile, she teases him, saying if he can do that, he should have said so before. Toguro, however, says it wasn't him but our MC who motivated him to fight. He continues, saying that if she's his big sister, she should tell him not to make him remember silly things at the last second, while Akari comments on Yugo's cuteness. The soldier then tells him not to forget, because as long as that stupid thing is in his heart, he himself won't be stupid at all, leaving the soldier with a serious expression. Faced with this, Takara gets all embarrassed and lets out a sheepish little laugh. At the end of the night, Rindu says goodbye to the group and thanks everyone for coming together. She then repeats that anyone who wants to switch careers to become a soldier should contact her and promises she won't treat them poorly, even if they have to risk their lives. Kono then shows off an autograph he got and thanks her happily, while Takara complains that he drank too much. Akari then turns to Gobei and asks what he's going to do from now on. The old man replies that his condition has been excellent since then and that it seems various parts of his body that were falling apart have been healed thanks to the status boost. The old man continues, saying that above all, since he received a unique weapon, it would be a waste to let it rust. With his new weapon in hand, he says goodbye and tells them to meet again on some hunting ground. And so, he turns to Yugo and warns him not to perish until they meet again. After the farewell, our MC looks at his own hand and reflects that in the end, running away from the demon world transformation was pointless. He continues his reflection and finally understands that even if he runs, someone will fight in his place because he wants people like his friends to survive. With this new determination, he decides he needs to end this nightmare once and for all somewhere and without fail. And so, he turns to his coworker and announces that he's quitting his job tomorrow, leaving the young woman completely surprised. With a slight smile, he reminds her of her words that he doesn't have to suffer alone, and says that those words saved him from the bottom of his heart. With that, he says goodbye, thanking her for everything and telling her to take care. Desperate, the young woman yells for him to wait and tries to call his name. However, before she can reach him, a hand stops her from continuing, and the one who held her back was Rindu, who approaches with a serious expression on her face. With a smile, she says that now it's a private one-on-one party. As our MC walks away through the city, Rindu asks the young woman if she doesn't want to hear what happened in the first demon world transformation. Ground Zero. The young woman is then shocked by the revelation and asks what happened to Yugo. With that, the scene cuts to a fancy bar where Rindu and Akari are sitting as the door chime rings. A moment later, the soldier asks the bartender for a bottle of an expensive drink in a large glass. Her coworker, however, gets all flustered because the place has no menu and she doesn't know what to order since everything seems very expensive. Seeing this, Rindu orders a cocktail called a grasshopper for the young woman. Akari tries the drink and is surprised by how good and sweet it is. Meanwhile, the soldier chugs a bottle with 46% alcohol all at once, and upon finishing, she slams the empty glass on the counter, leaving her coworker completely astonished. The woman then turns to Akari and asks what she thought of watching Yugo fight. The young woman is silent for a moment, reflecting on the question. Soon after, she replies that he seems used to fighting because he's calm and strong. However, she admits that above all, it was painful to watch that scene. Her coworker then mentions the young man's ability called Pain Form, the receptacle of pain. Rindu then reveals that Yugo obtained that ability during Ground Zero, the first nightmare. Hearing the revelation, the young woman is completely shocked and repeats the word during. Not understanding, the soldier begins to explain that it was a long ordeal and that this kind of thing happens in large-scale demon transformations. As she asks for permission to smoke, and her coworker agrees. As she lights her cigarette, she continues, saying the initial phase was particularly hellish and that when she found Yugo, he had already lost his parents. With that, we see an image from the past with our MC as a child, completely injured and holding a knife with a lost look in his eyes. The soldier then takes a drag from her cigarette and says she'll never forget the state she found him in as long as she lives. And so, Rindu changes the subject and reveals that the first survival test is quite simple, as only those who didn't panic managed to pass. She continues, saying the young man dedicated himself to observing the types of enemies that appeared and their behavior patterns. With that, he learned how to move to be attacked and, most importantly, how to move to escape with his life. The soldier reveals that he would hold his breath and think only of that to stay focused and alive. Soon after, he noticed the existence of items, and in her case, she found a crossbow in a bathroom, while the young man had only a single-edged knife. She continues, saying he seemed to have found other items but settled for that one, probably because he was more used to using it. Her coworker is confused by the statement, and Rindu explains that the young man's father was the type who liked camping, so he had some survival skills. The soldier then reveals that, for the record, she was a Girl Scout and the rule was to treat the younger ones like little siblings, and she can't shake the habit. However, she says with a serious look that this isn't the only reason. With that, we see an image from the past where she's hugging him, and the soldier reveals that she felt they needed to become a family, even if it was by force. And so, the woman puts out her cigarette in the ashtray and says no one lasts long in solitude because, in a moment of carelessness, you lose the will to live. The soldier continues, explaining that this is fatal, especially inside a demon world transformation. With a serious look, she asks the young woman if she understands what that means, and her coworker just remains silent. Rindu then says she realized the young woman did her homework and investigated her and apologizes for the rudeness in mentioning her father's condition. The soldier then reveals that Akari's father suffers from cell darkening syndrome, an incurable disease, and that her mother mysteriously disappeared. Because of this, even with government help, the young woman had to drop out of college to pay the medical bills. Her coworker, however, says it's fine because she wasn't good at studying anyway. And so, Rindu gets straight to the point and says she knows it might sound rude, but soldiers earn very well, with a high monthly salary plus payment for each mission. She continues, explaining that once you reach the Silver Bear class or higher, earning hundreds of millions is not impossible. With a smile, the soldier asks if that sounds suspicious but says she doesn't say this to just anyone, and that this time it's just for the young woman and Mr. Maruto. With that, the woman reveals she heard about Akari's deeds from Yugo, and that she clearly has the aptitude to survive the demon world transformation. Desperately, she admits she wants as many allies like the young woman as possible. Right after, Rindu puts out her cigarette in the ashtray and corrects herself, and so, she gets straight to the point and says she wants her coworker to stay by Yugo's side, because she herself can't be there for him, as she has risen too high in her career. The soldier then reveals that the Golden Lion class is the key piece of defense against demon transformations, and that they are forced to mobilize for outbreaks in densely populated areas, and it was pure luck she managed to arrive in time this time. The soldier continues, explaining she made the same offer to Mr. Maruto, but he politely refused, saying he can't shake off the rust if someone stronger is by his side, and she finds that reliable in its own way. However, Rindu turns to her coworker and, with a serious look, says, "But you..." With that, the young woman picks up a glass of drink and prepares to chug it. Without a second thought, Akari downs the glass in one go, showing her frustration. Right after, she slams the glass hard on the counter and complains that the soldier treated her to expensive drinks, cornered her, and manipulated her with emotions, and that she didn't need all that seriousness. With her face red and her eyes full of emotion, the young woman yells that she wouldn't leave him alone anyway, and angrily she continues her rant, wondering what he meant by "take care," and if he thinks that was a clean breakup. The young woman continues to yell, wondering if he's still mocking her or if he sees her as a burden, and if she was the only one who thought they were comrades. With her face full of frustration, she questions why he didn't say he was scared and ask her to go with him. With that, the young woman finally collapses onto the counter, completely drunk and exhausted after her outburst. Soon after, she composes herself and admits she's an annoying drunk and that she was holding back. However, she says that since she was invited, the soldier will have to keep her company until the bitter end. With a satisfied smile, Rindu raises her golden glass, accepting the challenge. And so, the woman turns to the bartender and asks for another bottle of the same expensive drink. With the bottle open, the soldier relaxes and says she doesn't believe in leaving bottles unfinished, and reflects on her little brother and how he changed before she even noticed. With one last toast, the pair decides to drink until morning, and our MC reflects that he's made a good friend. 5 days later in Nagoya, we see a road sign indicating the direction. Riding a motorcycle, Akari says it's fine because they are right in the center of the predicted outbreak zone. On the back, Yugo asks what they'll do now. The young man is surprised she has a license to ride, and the young woman explains the bike was a gift from Rindu because it's good for bad roads and traffic jams. With that, our MC decides they need a plan, and that the goal is to strengthen their stats and unique armaments. However, he knows these things only grow by fighting inside a demon world transformation, and so, he explains that the priority now is to get used to using their unique armaments. Excitedly, the young woman agrees and says she needs special training for her hero's pistol. She then asks if there's any place she can shoot, and the young man confirms, saying large cities have facilities for soldiers, commonly called guilds. He continues explaining they can use the training grounds and that lodging is free in predicted outbreak zones, because they are now official soldiers. The young woman then understands it would be a waste not to use the opportunity, and the young man takes her to the location. In front of an imposing building with an oriental architecture, our MC announces that this is the Nagoya Guild, and the young woman is impressed. With a serious look, Yugo tells them to try not to cause trouble, as newbie White Rabbit class soldiers are easy targets for harassment. She, however, gets offended and asks if he thinks she'd go around picking fights with strangers, but he replies that maybe if she were buying the fight. With that, Akari retorts that the young man is turning the tables on her, but he replies that's exactly what he means. Suddenly, a group of soldiers approaches and the leader comments that some flashy rabbits just showed up and that they're outsiders who look like amateurs. One of the soldiers even questions if they're a couple, further increasing the tension. The leader then gets annoyed and says says he needs to teach them a lesson, and so he reveals himself as Kunu Jinzaburo, a silver bear class soldier, and with his glowing red eyes, he says he'll put them in their place. The scene then cuts to the guild's reception, where an employee reviews the pair's documents and confirms they are both White Rabbit class and newbies. He, however, is surprised to read that they have already experienced the demon world transformation twice in Fushimi's case, and that both possess unique armaments. Our MC then asks if this is real, because if he exaggerated, he could get caught, but the employee replies that he just wrote down the facts. The other employees are shocked to see that the pair has a recommendation from Soldier Rindu. One of them then freaks out upon discovering that our MC is one of the first survivors of Ground Zero. With that, the employee apologizes for his rudeness and hands the membership cards to the pair. He explains that lodging and use of the training facilities are free, but they also offer several optional paid services. The man continues, saying that with the basic service, the rooms are separated by gender and are 4-person dormitories with bunk beds, and the young woman is surprised she has to share a room. With a disdainful look, the employee says of course they can provide private rooms for a fee, and that double rooms are more affordable, and the young woman suggests they get a double room together, but our MC immediately refuses. The young woman is a little hurt by the immediate refusal, but our MC explains that for day, they'll get private rooms because they're going to train, and he doesn't want to be tired the next day. A guild employee then informs them that since they'll be using the training facilities, and it's their first time, the content is already set. With that, Akari appears alone in a large training room, and is informed that the evaluation will be a test of individual combat power through a simulated battle. The employee instructs her to use her unique armament, as they want to capture precise data, and some people tend to hide their abilities, and so the rules are simple, and some blue holographic enemies appear with the instruction that she needs to defeat them. The woman explains that the enemies are pseudo-enemies by design and that she won't be injured if attacked, but they will measure the damage as part of the combat evaluation. Excitedly, the young woman asks if her rank will go up if she gets a really good score, but the employee denies it, saying the evaluation will only serve as a criterion for future judgments. She then adds that the enemy's attacks will be accompanied by pain, like a taser without lethal power, but that they intentionally made the experience very painful. Yugo's coworker asks how painful it will be, and the woman replies that it's enough to make some people give up on becoming soldiers during the evaluation. With the warning given, the employee wishes her good luck, and the holographic enemies charge full speed at Akari. From an observation room, the guild employees watch the test begin on a monitor. In the spectator room, the group of soldiers from before watches the scene, and the leader tells someone to check on the guy, but another says he'd rather watch the cute girl. When intimidated, the young woman draws her golden hero's pistol and opens fire on the creatures. The shots hit the holographic enemies' heads dead on, and they explode in a flash of light. In the spectator room, one of the soldiers praises her aim, saying 3 consecutive headshots is very good, while the leader just lets out a disdainful grunt. The leader of the soldier group then comments that it's not bad, but that it won't work against the tougher enemies, and right after, a giant holographic enemy appears in front of the young woman. Without hesitation, she fires her golden pistol at the creature. The shots hit the monster's chest dead on, but don't seem to have any effect. The young woman is surprised that she hit it, and yet the enemy is still standing, and a notification informs her that the attack was ineffective due to lack of power, and so, the employee instructs her to increase the shot's power or aim for vital points and use her ingenuity. Yugo's coworker then calms down and remembers that this isn't just a gun, but a unique armament. With that, she remembers how Yugo fought with his weapon and realizes she already knew how to use the pistol the moment she received it. With renewed determination, the young woman tells herself she can do this. From there, she charges full speed at the giant creature, surprising everyone. In the spectator room, the soldiers are shocked to see her advance with a long-range weapon. As she runs towards the monster, the young woman reflects that she thought about this while watching Yugo fight, and with a leap, she dodges the attack and fires point blank at the monster's chest. With the shot, an explosion of golden light throws the young woman back while the holographic enemy is completely destroyed. In the spectator room, the soldiers are shocked by what happened and wonder why the weapon didn't have that power before. With a satisfied smile, the group's leader says that this is interesting. He then realizes the weapon's power increases the closer she gets to the enemy, and that the hero's pistol's ability is a powerful point-blank shot, and the young woman complains that it's true it hurts a lot and that she feels like crying. Excitedly, the group's leader stands up and shouts that he liked that. 20 minutes later, the training room is filled with destroyed holographic enemies, and the employee praises the young woman's good work. The woman says it was a good score score but that she took too many hits, and that in a real combat that would be fatal, but the young woman thanks her for the warning and says she wants to push herself recklessly, at least in training. The employee understands her motivation and says that in that case, she has a proposal for additional recklessness. Suddenly, the group of soldiers from before appears, and the young woman wonders who they are. The employee explains that they received a request for joint train from other soldiers, and that if she accepts, they will start right now. With a snap of his fingers, one of the soldiers says she has guts, and the young woman cocks her weapon, ready for whatever comes. In the spectator room, the group's leader praises her attitude and says it would be a waste to let her perish easily and proposes a match. The proposal is that she fight the guys in sequence, and if she manages to beat one of them, she wins. In addition, he offers a cash prize of 100,000 for each victory, and the young woman is completely shocked and excited by the offer. The leader continues, saying that conversely, if she can't win even once, he wins, and in that case, she will become his subordinate. One of the soldiers then promises he won't treat her poorly, and that he'll train her hard so she can survive. The young woman starts counting on her fingers and realizes that if she wins all the fights, she'll earn 500,000. Suddenly, a strong tremor shakes the place, and the soldiers wonder if it's an earthquake. The group's leader also feels the tremor and goes on alert. Yugo's coworker, however, says it's not an earthquake and that it has already stopped. With that, a researcher falls to the ground scared as our MC appears, apologizing. The young man continues to apologize for the disturbance and says he overdid it a bit. Akari is surprised to see him there and calls his name, and he asks who those people are. The researcher is completely terrified by what just happened and stammers, unable to answer, and so, he just points to the completely cracked and destroyed wall behind him, unable to say a word. Our MC then joins his coworker, and she explains that they offered 100,000 if she wins. With a serious and determined look, Yugo sizes up the situation, and with a smile, he says the bet is interesting because if she loses, she'll be recruited. In the spectator room, the group's leader observes the pair with a sharp look, ready for what's to come. With the bet made, Akari asks if she can join in, but our MC immediately says he's getting in on this too.